First on the travel list is the vlogger's favorite pocket rocket, the Canon G7X Mark III. Beautiful colors and crisp autofocus in a tiny body. Roll the review.
I just spent a week shooting with the Canon G7X Mark III in 2026, and the most surprising discovery isn't the image quality, it is the price tag. Despite being nearly 7 years old, this camera is currently selling for $1,200 on the secondary market. That is roughly $400 over its original launch price. I found that the TikTok effect has turned this gadget into a speculative asset rather than just a tool. While the skin tones are still the best in the business, I quickly realized that you are paying a massive nostalgia tax for a device that technically should be obsolete. Design and build quality. The moment I picked this up, I remembered why I loved the G7X series. It feels significantly more substantial than the plastic-heavy Sony ZV-1 series. The metal chassis and the knurled control ring around the lens give it a mechanical soul that modern vlogging-first cameras lack. In my experience, the ergonomics are superior for actual photography because it feels like a shrunken-down DSLR. However, compared to the current premium standard, the Fujifilm X100VI, the G7X feels a bit more utilitarian and less like a piece of jewelry, though it actually fits in a jeans pocket, which the Fuji simply cannot do. Key features. The 1-inch stacked sensor was a big deal at launch, and it still holds up for one specific reason: the 24-100mm f1.8 to 2.8 lens. I found that having that extra reach up to 100mm is a massive utility advantage over the 18-50mm range of the newer Sony ZV-1 II. You can actually get genuine background blur and compressed portraits that your iPhone 17 Pro still tries to fake with software. The hype around this camera centers on the Canon color science. In my testing, it still delivers those warm, ready-to-post JPEGs that make everyone look like they've had 8 hours of sleep. However, the vertical video support, a pro feature back in 2019, is now just standard across the industry, and the lack of a built-in viewfinder feels increasingly restrictive when shooting in the bright midday sun. The competition battle. When you put this against the Sony ZV-1 II, the trade-offs are brutal. With the Sony, you are getting an autofocus system that feels like it's from the future. It tracks eyes with terrifying precision. With the Canon, I found myself constantly double-checking if I was actually in focus because the contrast detect system still hunts, especially in low light. You save about $300 to $400 if you go with the Sony, but you lose that tactile premium metal feel and that versatile 100mm zoom. The Canon is a photographer's compact that people forced into a vlogging role, while the Sony is a purpose-built video tool that feels like a toy in comparison. Limitations. The bitter truth. Here is the bitter truth that the aesthetic influencers won't tell you. The autofocus is unreliable and the thermal management is a disaster. I found that if you try to shoot 4K video for more than 10 minutes, the camera gets uncomfortably hot and will eventually shut down. The real deal breaker, though, is the short-range focus bug. Even after multiple firmware updates, this camera occasionally decides that the background is more interesting than your face during a vlog. If your content depends on set-it-and-forget-it reliability, this camera will let you down at the worst possible moment. You are essentially paying 2026 professional prices for 2019 autofocus technology. The final verdict: buy or skip. The market value of the G7X Mark III right now is completely detached from its technical performance. Buy this if you are a stills-first shooter who wants a pocketable backup to a larger Canon system. You specifically want that filmy look and legendary skin tones without spending hours in Lightroom. You find a used unit under $700. At that price, it's a steal. Skip this if you are a serious vlogger. The Sony ZV-1 II or even the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 will run circles around this for half the price. You hate hunting autofocus. You are looking at those $1,200 graphite edition listings. Do not do it. You're paying for a trend, not a tool.
Next up is the ultimate audio upgrade. The Hollyland Lark M2 is a wireless mic system the size of a button, yet it delivers crystal clear sound. Let's hear it. I spent 3 days trying to make the Hollyland M2 my primary audio setup for a high-end commercial shoot, and I realized almost immediately that there is a single physical design choice that makes this the most convenient mic I've ever used, while simultaneously being a potential nightmare for professional reliability. I'll explain exactly why the mounting system is a double-edged sword after we look at how it actually performs in the field. Design and build. The button mic. The Lark M2 is effectively a button microphone. Each transmitter, TX, weighs a mere 9 grams, which is about the weight of 2 sheets of A4 paper. The chassis is a dense, high-grade polycarbonate that feels surprisingly rugged for its size. Materials, polycarbonate and metallic mesh. It doesn't have the premium Pro Tool density of the DJI Mic 2, but it feels more modern and less like a bulky plastic box. Ergonomics. The camera version receiver, RX, features a large, tactile gold-rimmed dial for gain adjustment. It's satisfyingly clicky, allowing for blind adjustments while looking at a monitor. The weight advantage. Because it's only 9 grams, it doesn't cause shirt collars to sag or droop, a constant frustration with the 32-gram Rode Wireless Go 2. But here's the thing. While the weight is a win, Hollyland leaned entirely into a magnetic attachment system. You get clips and necklaces, but the magnets are the primary intended use. It looks sleek and invisible on a t-shirt, but if you're filming high-action sports or someone wearing a thick winter coat, that magnet starts to feel a lot less secure. Key features: performance versus hype. Hollyland markets a 1,000-foot, 300-meter line-of-sight range. In my testing at a crowded local park with significant 2.4 GHz interference from nearby Wi-Fi and smartphones, I found the functional range to be closer to 150 to 200 feet. Real-world testing. I had a subject walk behind a thick oak tree at about 100 feet away. The signal didn't just jitter, it dropped momentarily. This is a standard limitation of the 2.4 GHz band, but it's important to note because the Lark M2 lacks internal onboard recording. Unlike the DJI Mic 2 or Rode Wireless Pro, if you lose the wireless link, that audio is gone forever. This is where Hollyland earns its keep as a vlogger tool rather than a cinema tool. Technical depth. Audio quality. It captures 48 kHz by 24-bit lossless. ENC, environmental noise cancellation. I tested this next to a busy intersection. The strong setting is aggressive. It removes the traffic, but it makes the human voice sound slightly robotic and compressed. The weak setting, however, is a masterpiece for quick turnaround social media content where you don't have time for post-processing in Adobe Podcast. Battery life and power management. The battery performance is arguably the strongest spec-to-reality match in the kit. Measured runtime. I ran a continuous recording test at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. The transmitters lasted 9 hours and 42 minutes, just shy of the 10-hour claim, with ENC turned off. Charging case. The camera version case is a beast. It provides 3 full recharges for the entire set. Total field time is roughly 40 hours. Charging quirks. The case uses USB-C, but it is picky. I found it wouldn't charge using some high-wattage MacBook Pro chargers, USB-C PD, requiring a standard 5-volt 2A dumb brick or a lower-spec cable. Ecosystem and long-term value. The Lark M2 combo is a Swiss Army knife out of the box. Unlike the Rode Wireless Micro, which forces you to choose between USB-C or Lightning, the Lark M2 combo includes a camera RX 3.3mm TRS, a USB-C mobile RX, and a Lightning mobile RX, MFI certified. Repairability. The iFixit style outlook is grim. These units are glued and sealed for the 9-gram weight goal. If the internal 97 mAh LiPo battery dies in 3 years, you're not replacing it yourself. You're buying a new transmitter for roughly $35 to $45. 3-year total cost of ownership. Initial kit, $140 to $160. Spare magnet or clip kit, $15. You will lose a magnet. Total, $175. Compared to a $349 DJI Mic 2 setup, the Lark M2 is half the price for 80% of the functionality. The competition battle.
When I put the Hollyland M2 against the DJI Mic 2, the trade-offs are crystal clear. The DJI Mic 2 offers 32-bit float internal recording, which gives you a safety net if your levels peak or the signal drops. It also has a built-in touchscreen on the receiver for precise control. However, the Lark M2 wins on discretion and weight. I found that for man-on-the-street interviews, people were much less intimidated by the tiny Lark button than the branded box of the DJI or Rode. You're essentially choosing between professional redundancy, DJI, and extreme portability, Hollyland. Unexpected strengths. What surprised me most is the Lark Sound app. Usually these budget companion apps are buggy messes. Hollyland's app allowed me to adjust the speaker volume, output gain, of the phone receivers and customize the ENC intensity. Here's where it gets interesting. You can use the transmitter button as a remote shutter for your phone's camera. I was able to set my phone on a tripod 20 feet away and trigger video recording just by double-clicking the side of the mic. It's a small detail that saves a massive amount of walking back and forth time for solo creators. Limitations, the bitter truth. Here's the reality the marketing won't tell you. The lack of a 3.3mm input lavalier port on the transmitter is the weakest link because it forces you to use the built-in microphone capsule, regardless of the environment. This means if you're wearing a heavy suit jacket or a costume that doesn't play well with magnets, you cannot plug in a professional lavalier mic into the transmitter. You're stuck with the button on the outside of your clothes. Resolving the open loop. Remember the design choice I mentioned at the start? It's the magnetic mounting. Because there is no backup physical clip built into the TX, it's a separate plastic piece you have to snap on. If you lose that tiny magnet while filming in tall grass or a crowded event, that transmitter becomes useless for the rest of the day. In my experience, the magnet is strong, but a snag on a camera strap can pop it right off. The final verdict, buy or skip. Buy this if you are a solo content creator. You want the fastest plug-and-play experience with zero menu diving. You value discretion. You hate the look of large, boxy microphones clipped to your chest. You use multiple devices. You frequently jump between filming on an iPhone, an Android tablet, and a mirrorless camera. Skip this if you do paid client work. The lack of internal backup recording is a massive risk. If you have 2.4 GHz interference and the signal drops during a wedding vow, you have no way to recover that audio. You need a hidden mic. Since you can't plug in an external lavalier, you can't hide the transmitter in a pocket and run a wire up the shirt. You're working in high-action environments. The magnetic mount is lifestyle secure, not stuntman secure. Is the lack of internal recording a deal breaker for your specific workflow, or does the $150 price point justify the risk?
And closing the portable creator kit is the 2025 MacBook Air. It slides into any backpack and edits 4K video all day without a charger. Watch this. I went into this expecting a minor chip bump, the usual annual refresh. But after using this as my main machine, I feel like this is the first time in years that the base model MacBook Air is the one I can actually, unreservedly, recommend. It's not about the M4 chip, it's about what Apple finally bundled with it. Design and build quality. Let's get this out of the way. If you've seen the M3 or M2 MacBook Air, you've seen this one. It's physically identical. We have the same thin, squared-off aluminum body, which I still think is fantastic. It weighs 2.7 pounds, feels incredibly dense and premium, and opening the lid with one finger is still satisfying. The keyboard and trackpad are, as always, the best in the business. There's no change here, and that's a good thing. My one complaint remains. All the ports are on one side. I'm still living with 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports and a MagSafe charger, all crammed onto the left. Key features in action. I want to focus on 3 things because they're the only ones that really matter in day-to-day use. 1. The 16GB base RAM. This is the real headline. For years, I've had to tell people, get the Air, but please upgrade the RAM. Apple shipping 8GB of memory in a $1,000 plus laptop felt like a bad joke. With the M4 model, the $999 base configuration starts with 16GB of unified memory. This completely changes the experience.
I'm a heavy multitasker. My workflow is a mess of Chrome tabs, Slack, Spotify, Figma, and multiple documents. On the 8GB M3 Air, I'd eventually hit a wall. I'd see that memory pressure in Activity Monitor, and things would start to lag. With this M4 and 16GB, I haven't been able to make it sweat. This is the single biggest real-world upgrade, and it makes the starting price feel like a genuine value. The M4 chip in a fanless body. The new M4 chip has a 10-core CPU, which is 2 more efficiency cores than the M3. Is it faster? Yes. Does it feel like a revolution? No. Where I did notice it was in heavier tasks. I ran a Windows 11 virtual machine through Parallels, and it felt snappier than it ever did on my M2 Air. When I was batch editing a set of 50 photos in Lightroom, the previews generated noticeably faster. But this is still a fanless machine. When I exported a 10-minute 4K video, the M4 was faster than the M3, but it got hot and you could feel it throttle back at speed. It's like having a sports car engine and a compact car body. It's powerful, but it can't redline for long. The 12-megapixel center stage camera. Finally, Apple upgraded the webcam sensor to 12 megapixels, and it now includes center stage. The image quality is definitely sharper and less grainy in low light than the old 1080p camera, but the center stage feature, which I thought was a gimmick, is surprisingly useful. I pace a lot in video calls, and the camera just smoothly follows me around in the frame. It's a small, polished feature that makes the Air feel more pro. Performance and daily reality. For my daily grind, this machine is silent, fast, and cool. The M4 chip paired with the 16GB of RAM means I never have to think about closing apps or tabs. It just works. The battery life is where I found a slight trade-off. Apple claims the same up to 18 hours as the M3. In my testing, which involves a lot of web browsing, document writing, and streaming, I was consistently getting about 13 to 14 hours. That is fantastic. It's more than a full day, but it does seem to be an hour or two less than what I got on the M3. My guess is the more powerful 10-core M4 chip just sips a little more juice. It's a trade-off I'm willing to make. The Apple Intelligence features are here, but they feel very beta. It's neat to have AI help rewrite an email, but it's not the game changer Apple is marketing it as. Right now, it's not a reason to buy. Limitations and trade-offs. My biggest complaint is the display. It's 2025, and this is still a 60 Hz panel. The Liquid Retina display is bright and beautiful, but after using competitors like the new Dell XPS 13 with its gorgeous OLED screen, the Air's display feels a step behind. The motion blur is noticeable when scrolling. The other trade-off is the base 256GB SSD. While Apple hasn't confirmed it, this is likely a single, slower NAND chip, just like in previous models. If you're moving large files, the 512GB model will be faster. For most people, you won't notice, but it's a corner Apple cut to hit that $999 price. Final verdict. This is the easiest MacBook Air recommendation in a long time, but with a few clear conditions. Buy this if you are upgrading from an Intel-based or M1 MacBook Air. This will be a revolutionary leap in performance and battery life. You are a student or professional who needs a silent, reliable, all-day machine for a mix of productivity and web-based tasks. You are going to buy the M3 and upgrade the RAM. This base model gives you that, plus a better chip for less money. Skip this if you already have an M2 or M3 MacBook Air. The M4 is not a big enough jump to justify the cost. You are a creative professional who regularly exports long videos or renders 3D models. You need a fan. Go for the MacBook Pro. You demand the best screen. That 60 Hz panel is the Air's only truly budget feature in a premium body.